I noticed the chandelier before I caught her voice, the faint metallic trembling above the dinner table that always warned me my mother was about to speak. She leaned forward, lips barely parting, and said, "We're only inviting you because we feel sorry for you, so don't linger." Forks hovered mid-air. My sister's smirk twitched like she'd been waiting for that line all evening. My brother circled the amber in his glass, acting as if the sentence floated towards someone behind me. Heat crept along my neck, but my fingers stayed steady as I lifted my drink. I smiled, took the smallest sip I could get away with, and rose. No chair scraped in protest. No hand reached out. No one even bothered to acknowledge I was leaving. But 2 weeks later, every single one of them would. Before I lead you further, I need to know if anyone else has heard words like that, words that shrink you without raising their volume. If so, come with me, because the story veered in a direction none of them ever anticipated. I'm Lotus, the voice inside all of this. When I was small, Lake Marlowe's cabin was the only place where I wasn't transparent. My grandfather would wake me before the sun, his footsteps soft across the wooden hall. We'd step onto the dock just as dawn began pulling pink streaks across the still water. He'd place a fishing rod in my hands, steadying my grip with his warm palms. The lake smelled like cold pine and quiet promises, and at night we'd sit by the fire, my fingers sticky with marshmallows that dripped and burned into sugar crystals. The cedar chest in the corner held the deed he always referred to as ours. "One day this will belong to you," he told me. "Protect it." I kept those words tucked in a place no one else could reach. After he passed, the cabin twisted into something unfamiliar. My parents quietly absorbed it into what they like to call the family property, even though the title, untouched, unaltered, remained under my name. Summers were coordinated in group chats created only after everything was booked. Photos from those weekends appeared in frames around their house, the perfect curated collection. My brother posed on the dock, my sister wrapped herself in a blanket on the porch like she lived there year-round, my parents smiling as if they had hammered the place together plank by plank. I wasn't in any of those pictures. Growing up in that house taught me attention was rationed, assigned to whichever child served the narrative best. My brother, the golden one, my sister, sweet and adored, and me, the one they called reliable, the extra set of hands who carried bags and solved problems and stayed unseen. When I earned honor roll, the auditorium chair next to me stayed empty. When I juggled 2 jobs in community college, my mother used me as an example of what not to become. It was never a dramatic cruelty, just a slow carving out of my place until I became a fixture no one deliberately looked at. There was a summer when I tried to push back. They were planning, again, another weekend at the cabin. I tried, softly, to claim space. "I'd like to come this year." My mother didn't bother looking up from her paperwork. "All the rooms are already assigned, maybe another time." My brother snorted. My sister scrolled on her phone without lifting her gaze. I stood in the doorway, a grocery bag in my hands, full of snacks they'd asked me to bring. Someone had told me to pick up a lantern. No one saw when I set the bag down and walked out. Thinking back, that was when I learned the shape of the silence they expected from me and how to move inside it. 2 nights after that dinner, my phone buzzed across the kitchen counter while I was rinsing a cup. The family group chat notifications lit up the screen like a flare. Their planning had already begun. My brother sent a picture of a new grill he wanted to haul up there. My sister suggested matching shirts for the porch photos they were already imagining. My mother typed paragraphs about groceries, beds, seating, careful logistics for a weekend I wasn't mentioned in. I tapped the screen, their messages stacked like theater scripts where my role had been deleted. One thread read, "All the rooms are full. Lotus doesn't really show up anyway." Another said, "We'll use her key if she forgets to leave it." Her key, like it wasn't mine at all. A small envelope blinked at the top of the screen. Another bank alert. I opened it without thinking. The email detailed activity on a joint account I didn't remember consenting to. My name sat beside my mother's. At the bottom, property tax auto payments tied to my information, payments for the cabin, payments I never approved. I stared at the blue glow of the screen. The refrigerator hummed behind me. A car moved by outside. Something heavy settled in my chest. Not fear, not shock, just the realization that I was only useful when paperwork required a responsible adult. I placed the phone face down on the table. More messages vibrated underneath it, rattling the wood in short, impatient bursts. I didn't pick it up again. Instead, I sat in the old chair by the window and watched the city lights flicker. Dish towels hung unevenly on the oven handle, mail leaned crooked against the fruit bowl. The whole room felt paused, waiting. I closed my eyes briefly. When I opened them, something quiet and sharp aligned inside me. Not rage, not sadness, just clarity. A small smile surfaced, not wide, not triumphant, barely there, but it was the kind of smile they'd never notice until it was too late. The next morning, before my alarm chimed, I woke to a soft gray light. The apartment felt like it was holding its breath. I tied my hair back and wandered into the kitchen, starting the coffee maker. Its slow drip echoed through the silence. I sat at the worn table with my notebook, flipping to a blank page. My pen felt warm between my fingers as the words formed in steady strokes. Sell the cabin, close the joint accounts, contact lawyer about the estate. 3 clean lines, a map written in ink. I sipped my coffee, then tugged the metal drawer of the filing cabinet. It groaned like it always did, metal scraping metal. I kept years of documents, old bank statements, tax bills, every line of anything related to the cabin, not for nostalgia, out of necessity. Near the back, wrapped in a fading envelope, I found the deed. Its edges were softened with time, still faintly scented from cedar in my grandfather's chest. I laid it flat on the table. At 7:14 a.m., I called Dan. He answered with a tired cough. "Lotus? Everything all right?" "I need to sell the cabin," I said, calm and clear. He paused long enough that I imagined him straightening in his chair. "The Marlowe cabin? Your grandparents' place?" "Yes. I thought your parents used it." "They do," I said, "but they don't own it." Another long pause. Then his voice shifted, professional and awake. "Send me the paperwork. I'll get it started." After we hung up, I fed the deed page by page into the scanner. The machine hummed steadily. I emailed the files to Dan with a single line, then opened my laptop and signed into the bank portal. The bluish light reflected across the kitchen. My name appeared beside accounts and credit lines I never agreed to. Some dated back years. I clicked through each section, reading dates, entries, signatures. Close account. Remove name. Cancel autopay. Each confirmation clicked softly, like a chain of distant switches being flipped. I wrote every completed step in my notebook, small check marks spreading across the page. At one point, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Mom's planning the trip. Are you coming or not?" I let the message fade from the screen without opening it. By noon, I had closed 4 accounts, removed myself from 3 others, and canceled every automatic payment tied to my name. The silence in the apartment felt different now. Not empty, but intentional, controlled. Next, I drafted an email to Harris, my parents' estate lawyer. I kept it brief, formal. "Hello. I'd like to review all documents related to the family estate and ensure my rights are properly represented. Please advise on available dates. Regards, Lotus." I read it twice, then hit send. Another buzz from my phone, this time a voicemail alert. Probably my mother, though she hadn't called me directly in weeks. I didn't listen to it. Not yet. Instead, I cleaned the table, stacking the papers into a single, organized pile. I slid them into a folder and placed it on the counter. The apartment felt sharper, like the edges of things had come into focus. The plan wasn't emotional. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was procedural, exact, unmistakably mine. Around 3, Dan texted, "Got the deed. Everything checks out. Starting the listing quietly. We'll send updates as offers come in." I replied with a simple thank you. As the afternoon faded into early evening, I sat by the window with a fresh cup of coffee. The city moved below me. Cars, voices, wind pushing against the glass. I watched it all with a stillness I hadn't felt in years. They had spent so long treating me like a name they could use, a space they could fill, a signature they could borrow. I had played along. I had stayed quiet. But this time, the silence belonged to me. I closed my notebook, set my pen on top of it, and took one slow, steady breath. This time, I wouldn't fix what they'd broken. 2 weeks passed before anything happened, long enough for the silence to settle into my apartment like a second layer of paint. I worked, cooked simple meals, answered emails, and watched the city move outside my window. Nothing dramatic, just time passing the way it always does, quietly, until something breaks. The first crack came early one morning. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed with a message from Dan. Offer came in. Cash buyer, closing soon, funds will transfer directly to your account. I read the words twice, not out of disbelief, but because they felt strangely distant, like reading about someone else's life. I texted back one word, approved, and set the phone aside. By noon, the cabin was gone. I didn't tell anyone, but they found out anyway. That evening, my sister sent a string of messages to the family group chat. They came in fast, like she was typing while pacing. Did someone change the lock code at the cabin? Mom's freaking out. Dad says the realtor sign wasn't there last week. Lotus, what did you do? I didn't open the thread. I just watched the previews stack on my lock screen, each one more frantic than the last. An hour later, my mother called 3 times. Then she switched to voicemail. Lotus, this is not funny. Call me back immediately. Then another, you had no right. This isn't just your decision. Call me now. And another, voice cracking, Lotus, please, you're scaring me. Call me back. I didn't. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching the voicemail counter climb like a timer. For the first time, their panic wasn't something they could hide behind polite words or controlled tones. It was raw, uneven, honest. Then came the bank statements. My mother texted a photo, blurry, tilted, but I could still make out the red notifications. Joint account closed, credit line suspended, property tax auto pay failed, secondary signature removed. She didn't send a message with the photo. She didn't need to. The image said everything. Within minutes, my brother called. Then again. I let each ring fade into the room like a distant alarm. Finally, he sent a single message. What the hell is going on? I put the phone face down, the vibration rattling lightly against the wood. The apartment felt smaller, tighter, like the air had thickened. The city outside seemed muted, as if waiting to see what I'd do next. Then came the moment I'd been expecting. A soft thud outside my door, a pause, then the buzzer. I pressed the intercom. It's Dad. Open up. His voice carried none of the command I grew up with. It sounded strange, something between anger and uncertainty. I buzzed him in and stepped back, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. The door opened hard, hitting the stop with a sharp click. My father stood there, breath heavy, face flushed. He looked around the apartment, slowly taking in the mismatched furniture, the tiny kitchen, the papers stacked neatly on the table. Is it true? He asked. Did you sell the cabin? I kept my voice even. Yes. You closed the accounts? Removed your name from everything? Yes. His jaw tightened. Do you understand what you've done? I nodded once, completely. He exhaled long and shaky, like someone realizing a door had been shut from the other side. All right, he said quietly. You've made your point. I straightened. No, I haven't. Not yet. He looked at me, then really looked. And in that moment, the balance shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, undeniable tilt. A small envelope sat on the counter beside me. Dan's letter. I slid it toward him. A lawyer's letter is on its way, I said. You should read it. His expression didn't break, but something in his posture folded, like a structure losing a support beam. He didn't argue, he didn't shout, he just turned, opened the door, and walked out. And for the first time in years, the silence he left behind felt like mine. The morning after my father left the apartment felt unusually bright. Sunlight slipped through the thin curtains in quiet, slanted lines, landing on the table where the last of the paperwork still sat in a neat stack. The room was still, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the soft drip of the coffee maker finishing its cycle. I moved slowly, almost carefully, as if the air had a new weight to it. I poured coffee into my chipped mug, wrapped both hands around it, and stood by the window. The city moved below, cars merging, people crossing streets, a dog tugging its owner toward the park. Ordinary things, steady things, things that didn't need my permission or my presence. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message preview appeared. Mom wants to apologize. Can we talk another? We didn't know things were this bad. Please answer. I didn't touch the phone. I let the screen dim on its own, the apartment returning to its soft quiet. I sat at the table, tracing the rim of my mug with one finger. The folder of documents was closed now, the deed to the cabin no longer mine, the accounts detached from my name, the legal letter already moving through the system. These things weren't symbols anymore. They were decisions, finished ones. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel suspended between obligation and resentment. I felt grounded, like someone standing on their own porch after a storm, hearing the world breathe again. A flicker of memory came back. The cabin at dusk, the lake turning copper as the sun dropped behind the trees, my grandfather's voice, low and steady, telling me to protect what was mine. I'd tried to honor that for years. In the end, protecting it didn't mean holding on to it. It meant releasing the place where I'd once belonged, but no longer did. I closed my eyes for a moment and inhaled slowly. The air smelled like coffee, old wood, and morning light warming the floor. When I opened my eyes again, everything felt clear. Not lighter, not heavier, just honest. The silence in the room wasn't the kind they forced on me. It was the kind I chose. I didn't cut them off. I just stopped signing my name under their chaos. Some endings don't slam shut. They settle like dust after a long breath, like a door easing closed on its own. And if you've ever reclaimed your quiet, even once, you know the sound it makes. It isn't loud, it isn't angry, it's the soft click of life finally belonging to you. If you've lived through something like this, let your voice be heard. Share what stayed silent the longest. Your story might be the reminder someone else needs to choose themselves.